big Saturday at Santa Anita continues with race number 8. It's the Snow Chief Stakes. It's one of 5 Cal-bred or Cal-sired stakes races on the Saturday card. Let's dive on in and take a look at the field for race number 8 on Saturday. They'll be going a mile and an eighth on the turf course. Shady Tiger is the 5-2 lukewarm morning line favorite in this really challenging race because you don't have horses in here with experience going a mile and an eighth on the turf. We're just going to be projecting with a lot of them in here. Speaking of projecting, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector and how they think this race will play out up front. Shady Tiger stretching out from 6.5 furlongs. They're expecting to be forwardly placed. We saw Take 3 showing speed going a mile on the turf. And then they also have Final Storm coming out of some of those sprint races being much more forwardly placed. We saw Final Storm show speed in his first couple starts. And most recently, he's taken back a little more, but now moving from 6 furlongs to a mile and an eighth, just by default, you're going to be a lot closer early on. They think it'll be a fast pace for Timeform US. Let's go through the field horse by horse and get you all set up for the Snow Chief on Saturday at Santa Anita. We will start down on the inside with the number 1, Shady Tiger. And Shady Tiger is in really nice form. I mean, this is just a good horse overall. He's 3 for 4. His only loss came in his career debut. That was going 5 furlongs on the turf. Since then, he has a win on the turf. It was going 6 furlongs. It's right here. This was on February the 17th. We saw him win on April the 6th on the dirt. He's just a solid horse overall. He gets up right on the wire there, but he did show a little more tactical speed when he was on the dirt last time out. The dam one going long on the synthetic, a sibling one going long on the dirt. Remember, you can find all of this stuff on your DRF formulator past performances. When you just look on the pedigree, you click right on the dam and it shows you what the dam's record was and how they did. It shows you what their direct siblings records were and where they performed well. It's just really difficult to knock Shady Tiger in his overall form, but this is a big difference going from 6.5 furlongs on the dirt to a mile and an eighth on the turf. So while I do respect his talent, I think he's in the mix. I have him in the under spots in here. I'll try to look for maybe a little bit more intriguing price in this particular race. Let's move right next door to number 2. Size Does Matter. We have a replay of this one coming off a 3rd place finish on April the 28th. Size Does Matter was behind a couple of today's common rivals with Curlin's Kiss, also with the number 4, 2x4. So you'll see a few of them in here. Size Does Matter is really interesting overall because I do think Size Does Matter is coming off of an effort where he's kind of in between horses. And with this horse's running style and the way you've seen his races develop, he feels like a horse who should have no problem going a little bit farther, going the mile and an eighth on the turf course. So I respect him quite a bit. I do like others a few more because I'm still thinking that at this moment, others are a little farther along. But this is a horse who I'm going to keep an eye on as the distances get longer like this and in these types of turf distance races with a little more form. Let's move next door to, I think, a pace factor in here. That's the number 3, Takes 3, who comes off of a 4th place finish last time out. He broke his maiden 2 starts back, going a mile on the turf. So what is nice about him in this race, he does have some of the better, more consistent mile turf form. Takes 3 is 12-1 on the morning line. I do think there is some other speed in here. And with some of these horses stretching out from sprint races, I'm not sure it's going to be quite as easy for him up front as it was last time out. So Take 3, more of a pace factor and an underneath for me. The number 4, 2x4 is one that I've always thought would be interesting in spots just like this, going a little bit longer on the turf. When you just kind of looked at his overall form, that's what you see when you're watching his races, a horse who just seems to get going late. He was a good runner-up last time out in that race where he faced a couple of today's common rivals with Curlin's Chaos and with Size Does Matter. So another hero I kind of have with Size Does Matter. These horses wouldn't shock me to see them run well. I do think they're going to need to improve a little bit to get the better of this group. And I'm looking for horses who I think might be sitting a little bit closer early in this race. So lots of respect for 2x4, but just like others a little bit more. As we move to the number 5, Curlin's Chaos, this is probably the horse to beat, the safest, most consistent horse in the field at this trip. You can put a line right through the Santa Anita Derby and the Sunland Derby. He ran a couple times on the dirt in races where they were trying to get qualified for the Kentucky Derby and see where he stacks up against some of the better 3-year-olds. And he was a little bit overmatched in both of those races against Stronghold, who actually came back and ran pretty well in the Kentucky Derby. Curlin's Chaos was in the second flight last time out. He angled to the outside. He was up to challenge at the top of the lane, and he pushed by. I think he is the measuring stick for this race. And if someone doesn't jump up and win and really improve at this level, at this trip, I think he's a horse who's going to run really well. So I have him in the second spot as a horse you have to use in all of your exotics. Right next door, we have a replay for Stay on the Fence. Stay on the Fence comes out of a victory at Santa Anita. Now, this was just a small field, and he was down on the inside in a field of 4, going 5.5 on the dirt. So while we like to see that he's coming off of a victory, he'll be moving from 5.5 on the dirt to 1.125 on the turf, where things will be much, much different. I'm looking at Stay on the Fence in here as a horse who will be part of the early pace. That's another one of those reasons why I'm not quite as high on Take 3. I'm looking for the horses that can be sitting right behind in that next tier, and Stay on the Fence to me will be kind of up front, carving things out, battling it out on the front end. We move to wild card in here, the number 7, Tamarando Star. This one's dam was a multiple stakes winner going long on the turf, has a win at 1.125 on the turf. He'll be making his third start off the bench, and his overall form is pretty good. I like the fact that he's shown some speed, but he can also pass horses in here, and I think he's bred a little bit better for the grass to step forward in here on the turf. So let's give him one more shot to really run well. Another positive is he's been facing open company, and now he moves in with California bred or California sired runners. So he's probably been facing a little bit better horses, and now we'll get a little class relief in here. I think Tamarando Star will outrun his odds and will show up with a good performance. Next door is going to be my top selection, the number 8, Final Storm. I thought the performance last time out was really impressive. We have a replay of that one, Final Storm getting the victory on April the 28th. This was his first start for the Phil D'Amato barn. This was his second win in a row. You'll see him down on the inside, and he's able to kind of shift around and get the job done here. Now he's going to make the third start of his form cycle and the second start for D'Amato. And I just think he will continue to step forward. You see, he looks like a horse that he's kind of grindy. He's not just a real fast turn of foot horse. Those are the horses that worry me a little bit when they stretch out, because a lot of times they're best suited for that one late run. I think this is just a talented horse who will be fine stretching out here. It's going to be a big change for him, going from 6 furlongs to 1.125. That's why Timeform US has him projected to be sitting much closer in here. And I agree with Timeform US. I'd love to see him sitting like 3rd or 4th from the outside and just getting a good trip throughout. Final Storm. Dam one going a mile on the turf, 3 siblings, 2 winners, both one going long. So while this is a lot to ask, he's bred to go long. He's bred to be good on the grass. And I think he meets a field that he can really stack up very well with. He's 6-1 on the morning line. If we got anything around 4-1 or above, I think that's very fair value if you're looking to make a win wager here. Couple more horses to the outside in this field. First up, it's Stolen Treasure with the blinkers coming on. I think he's just going to be a pace factor in here. I had a really hard time expecting him to show more improvement. He's got to get by like 5 or 6 rivals in this race who have all recently defeated him. So to me, more of a horse who I could see just at the bottom of the exotics, and a horse who's going to be involved in the early pace and probably faltering late. To round out the field, it's Keep Moving On. Now, he was all out in an easy spot for a 6 furlong for a win, his only victory, and that was going the mile on the turf. It was in a soft field. It was against a field of 6, not 6 furlongs, a mile on the turf, and he got a great trip that day. I just need to see more from him, because anytime something's been thrown at him, he really hasn't been able to kind of overcome it and show up with a better effort. So he needs to prove it to me. Both of the outside horses, I just needed to see a little bit more before I could use them in some of my exotics. So it's go time now. Where do we end up? We end up on the 8, Final Storm. 8-5-1-7 is how I see this. I think Final Storm is interesting from a betting standpoint. If he's anything over 4-1, I think you can get really nice value on him in this spot. I thought the number 5, Curlin's Chaos, is the horse to beat. We've seen him run so well multiple times going long on the grass. For a lot of these horses, we don't really know for sure if they want to go long on the grass. We know that Curlin's Chaos can do it, and can do it very well. And then you have the talent of the one Shady Tiger, who can be any kind. He's won 3 in a row and he's won on the grass, but this is a lot to ask for him. And you'll notice Shady Tiger and Final Storm, they're kind of doing similar things. The reason why I prefer Final Storm, he's just a lot better value. He's 6-1 on the morning line versus a horse like Shady Tiger, who's 5-2 and will probably be much shorter. Rounding things out, I thought the 7 Tamarando Star was a horse with that breeding, another shot on the grass, third start off the layoff, has been facing a little bit better with open company. I thought he made some sense in there too. So hopefully we can lead you in the right direction with a nice price with Final Storm. Good luck when you're playing the races this weekend. Make sure to head to DRF Bets when you play race 8 at Santa Anita on Saturday.